Hi, my name is Patrick Berquist, and I'm here with SK Doyle. And this is a video walking through the new Basic Human Need 2021 application. This video is for everyone that's filling out an application. We wanted to go through a couple of really key changes that we've made in the application and in the process. We hope these changes are going to make things just a little bit easier for you, and I think it's going to go a little bit smoother. So SK and I are going to walk you through this. As always, reach out to us if you have any questions, but we hope that this video will answer a bunch of those questions from the start. So SK, should we take a look at this?
Let's do it. I'm going to share my screen here. So we are going to send an email with all of these links, and the link to the application portal is also linked on our website, and this video will be linked to on our website as well.
So SK, we have a whole page on the Episcopal Charities website now called BHN 2021, which has everything linked right there in one spot.
Exactly. So you click into this is the application portal, and there's some instructions over here. For new users, if you're a first-time applicant, you'll hit this sign up button where you'll put in your email and set a password. And if you're a returning applicant, if you've applied for a grant with us before, you'll just log in. So let me log into mine here to show you.
So that means if you've applied for a BHN or YOG in the last year, your credentials are in here.
That's correct. Any grant, YOG or BHN in 2020, you should be in the system. So the first thing when you log in, if you're a new applicant, is you'll be instructed to create a profile. So this will be a little blue button that will say create a profile. And if you're a returning applicant, it's really important to sort of go through this form, and you'll do that by hitting this edit button. And just kind of scroll through and make sure that all of the information in here is correct. We know that a lot of things have shifted and people have moved around in different roles. And this is where we keep all of the contact information for your program and sort of basic information like your website, your social media, your mailing address. All of that is in your profile.
And so that's SK, all of the, one of the reasons why this is really important is like we're going to be sending contracts and decisions out to programs instead of through the mail. We're going to be sending them through email, and they're coming from this form. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes. So everything will be electronic this year, and it's all based on the information here in the profile. So just really important to make sure that that is all still correct. And then we can go into the application. So to start, you'll hit this Get Started button.
And this will take you right to just the BHN, just the Basic Human Need application.
That's exactly right. So then actually when you are in your home page, you'll see your application here. If it's blue, that means that it's not complete, it hasn't been submitted yet, and that there's work that still needs to be done on the application. Once you've submitted it, it'll gray out and you won't be able to get back in. So if you're unsure of whether your application has submitted to us or not, that's one way of looking, of seeing what color is this application bar here. So if we click in, and you'll see it tells us action required, that we still have some work here to do. So we'll click this open button, and this will open the application form. So we've got some instructions up here. This video that we are currently recording will be linked here so that that will be there for you as you're working through the application. If you have questions, you can revisit that and see if we answer your question there. And this first section of the application is sort of basic information about your program. It's pretty self-explanatory. And then we have these pieces that are related to your sponsoring parish. So you'll be able to upload a file directly into the system with your parish budget, your vestry list, and your 2019 audit for your parish.
And we realize that because of COVID-19, some of the audits haven't happened as quickly as they usually do. And so we need the most current audit there.
And the next thing we ask is whether your program is a registered 501c3. And if you select yes, if your program is a registered 501c3, then some additional questions will populate asking for some additional information from you. So if you are coming from a registered 501c3, we'll ask for your latest 990, a copy of your program budget for this year and for next year here, in whatever form that looks like for your program.
And just to clarify, if you're just a parish-based feeding program, do you need to upload a 990 or your, all these other documents?
No, you won't. So if you're not and you hit no, all of that goes away. And then we get into the budget portion, and you'll notice that the budget section of the application looks pretty significantly different than it has in past years. There's not one single budget form that you fill out and upload as we've done in the past. So instead, what we're asking is that all programs will upload a budget for the current year. So for parish-based non-501c3 programs, you'll hit this, select a file, and upload your budget for the current year, the program year that we're in now. Again, in whatever form that looks like for you. And then we have an optional field here to provide a copy of your budget for next year, if that's something that you have.
And again, we realize, especially in the context of COVID-19, that it's so hard to plan out right now. Parishes are trying to figure out their budgets, all of that. If you have something, it's helpful for the advisory committee to go through. But we're trying to kind of minimize the amount of things we're asking from you.
Exactly. And we do have this note here too. I just want to highlight that we may ask for additional budget information as we're looking at your application if you don't upload it here. And then when we, in the actual form, we're just asking for a few budget lines, and we're asking for some information about your program income for this year and for next year. And you will just enter a dollar amount directly into the form here. And you'll see, like on this government funds line here, there's some additional gray text on the bottom that kind of clarifies exactly what that means and what we're looking for. So for government funds, we're talking about cash grants from the government only. So if you're a food program or a food pantry that receives HIPNAP credits, you can include the HIPNAP cash component that is associated with that, but not the actual food credits. That will be a separate question later that we'll get to just here in a minute.
And just an observation. So anytime that an applicant sees like that gray lettering, that's a clue for what?
That's sort of just some additional prompting, some additional information and details about what exactly we're looking for.
Great.
And the other thing to point out, thank you, is this, any of the little red asterisks are required fields. So we're asking for your Episcopal Charities grant. If you received a BHN grant in 2020, you'll put that amount here at the top. You'll put in the amount that you're requesting for 21 here. Any other grants that you have? Sorry, Patrick.
No. So it looks like several fields, but this will actually be simpler, we think,
yes,
than the previous grant applications. But I think we're going to get more information. Remember, the key thing we're looking at is income and expenses for your program. So if you have to pay rent to a place, that's the number we're looking for in rent and utilities. If the church just gives you space and you don't pay the church, we don't want to know, we don't need to know any of those numbers. We just want to know how much money has to kind of go from your account to someone else's account.
Exactly. And then we do also have this space here where you can make any additional comments about your program's income. So this is really the space for you to tell us, what do we need to know about these numbers? What do these numbers mean? And then we'll move into the expenses section. And similarly to what Patrick was just saying, we're really looking for expenses that are paid by your program and for your program. So for example, you'll see on supplies for this program year, we're talking about the cost of supplies that were purchased that directly relate to your outreach program. And same thing with this, the rent and utilities, like Patrick was just saying. This is checks that your program is writing, expenses that are coming out of your program's budget. And again, you'll have space to make additional comments and tell us more about what those numbers mean.
And again, really, the reason why we're asking for these numbers is it helps our advisory committee. So we are looking for ways of supporting you, but we want to get to know you a little bit. And so these budget numbers just help us understand what you're doing, and so that we can find ways of partnering with you.
And here is the HIPNAP credits question that I was alluding to earlier. This is just a yes or no question. If your program does receive HIPNAP food credits, you'll be asked to indicate that here. So there are several questions kind of throughout the application that populate based on what you've answered to previous questions. So as you're kind of scrolling through, just note that additional things might be popping up that it's requiring you to answer. And a great example of that is in this next section, right? So this section is where you will tell us about the kinds of services that your program offers and the numbers of people that you're serving. So here you will select all of the service areas that apply to your program. So if your program has a food pantry and a sit-down meal and a meal delivery program, you'll select all of those that apply to you. And questions will come up asking for the numbers of people that you're serving.
So one thing that I would suggest is if you scroll back up just a little bit, that you take each one at a time. You just do each one at a time. So by selecting the food pantry first, you can scroll down and answer those questions about the food pantry. Go back up and then select the brown bag grab and go meal, if that's the second one, and answer those questions. What we're trying to do is trying to break down what used to be one giant number, how many people do you serve, and we're really trying to understand what you're doing so that we can better understand what's happening.
Exactly. And in terms of the numbers that we're asking for, I also just want to highlight, again, in our little gray text here at the bottom, it gives you some more information. But for all of our food programs, what we're asking for is a number of individuals or households that your program served in the month of August. So we're really just looking for 1 month of how many people walked through your door and received food or received services at your program.
So that's going to be the big number, right?
Exactly.
So even if someone comes 4 times, if you have a food pantry that's open once a week and people can come 4 different times, when you're looking at your overall monthly numbers, that person counts for 4.
Exactly. And then the only thing that's a little bit different is for non-feeding programs. So if you're a health and wellness program or a skills building program, we'll ask for, excuse me, let me pull it up here, sorry. Individual clients served in 2020. So in those cases, we are asking for the annual numbers. And then this next section is our program operations and infrastructure. And this is where you're going to tell us what you are planning to do in 2021. And again, we know that planning is really difficult right now and things are very subject to change. And we know that. But in this section, you're telling us what your plans are and what you are hoping to be able to do this year.
Great. And again, I'll just emphasize, if you look at the BHN application from last year, we've called out a ton of questions. So it looks like there's a bunch of things here, but it's actually significantly less than previous year's applications.
Yeah. And this next section is where we really kind of get into the meat of the application and where you really get to tell us the story of your program and what you're hoping to do. So we have a few sort of essay kind of questions that we're asking for programs to answer in 500 words or less. So it doesn't have to be super long. And you'll see that on each of these questions, there's this bolded sort of broad range category of what kind of information we're asking for. And as you're thinking through how to answer those questions, you can look to these gray, smaller, additional questions at the bottom, which are sort of prompts to kind of help guide your thinking. So it's not that you necessarily need to answer every single one of these questions, but we just offer those there to kind of guide your thinking and to tell you a little bit about the kinds of things that we're looking for in these questions.
And again, SK's really right when she says, like, this is your place to really give a narrative, to tell the advisory committee and our board what it is you're trying to do. We want you to be concise. If you are a large program that has multiple things going on, for this application, we really want you to focus on the program that you're applying for. Another way of putting this is, if your church is doing a bunch of outreach programs, but you're applying to Episcopal Charities for your food pantry, we don't necessarily need to know a lot about all the 12-step programs that you host. Those are great, but for the purpose of this application and the questions we're asking, we want you to really focus in on what you're applying for.
And finally, we get into the impact of COVID-19 section of the application. Because we know that COVID-19 has obviously had an impact on all of our programs. And so this is where you kind of get to tell us about what that has looked like and how your response and adapting during this time has been. And so these are some more sort of narrative spaces for you to tell us what's been going on and what's happening in your neighborhood.
And literally part of that can be, we had to close down.
Absolutely.
And we want to tell you, you are not going to be penalized for having to close down. We believe in the health and safety of every program. We want to make sure we're funding programs that are open, but like, you're not going to get docked if you put, oh, the pandemic really messed us up, because it messed all of us up. So be free and be honest in that section.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And then in the next section is related to our site visits. So this application is going live today, September 11th, and will be due on October 9th. And once the applications are in, a member of our advisory committee or a member of our staff will be coming to visit either in person or virtually with you to learn more about your program as part of that evaluation process. So this section will allow you to give us all the information that we'll need to make that happen pretty smoothly so that our advisory committee members can schedule a time with the right person to talk and answer some additional questions. So here you'll be able to tell us if you are able to do in-person or virtual visits and who the right person to coordinate that will be. And finally, I promise we're almost at the end. We have our grant policy compliance, where you basically just say that, yes, you understand our requirements and our policies for our grants. And finally, we ask for 3 little vignettes or 3 stories that illustrate your program's transforming of lives. And these are, you are open to be as creative as you'd like to be, to talk about the clients that you're serving, your volunteers that you're working with, any story that really you think illustrates the program's work, we would love to know about.
And then finally, the last bit.
Finally, the last bit is just this, our signature form. I would suggest copy and pasting this link or right-clicking and opening it in a new tab so it doesn't take you away from your application. But you'll just go right here. When it loads.
You're like, come on, PDF.
And you can print this. You'll sign it, the clergy and person in charge and the program director will sign this form, and then just re-upload it right here.
Great. And then, so SK, if you're working through the application and you need to step away from it, like, can you still save it as a draft and come back to it later?
Absolutely. So this little button here to save as a draft will save the work that you've done so far. So you don't have to sit down and complete the whole application in one sitting. You can leave and come back to it. But when you do go to submit, there are a few kind of additional steps that you have to make sure that you take. So you'll be saving as a draft and working on it. And when you're happy with the application, you're ready to submit, you'll hit this mark as complete button. And that is not the final step. It's a little misleading. So then when you go back into the home page, this button right here that says submit, that's currently grayed out, when all of the fields are completed, the system recognizes that all of the required questions are answered and we have all the information we need and you've marked it as complete. That button will turn green. And you will click that and submit it, and that's the final step for the application.
So what that means is, like, you will not be able to submit your application until, like, that clergy signature page is uploaded, right?
Exactly, exactly.
So it won't turn green unless all those fields that are required are taken care of.
That's right.
Great. Well, fantastic. Any other clues or things you wanted to share, SK, that would be helpful for programs?
I think we've about covered everything. You know, the only thing that I would say is to please revisit this video, and I hope that there's helpful information here, but also don't hesitate to reach out to Patrick or I, call or email us, and we're more than happy to help you with some of the tech things in this process.
Great. Again, our objective here is to be of assistance and to be helpful. So be in contact with us. Thanks so much for all the work you're doing. Hope this was helpful. And we will be in contact soon. Bye, everyone. Be safe.
Bye.